stream is live. Welcome to Mammal's Life with Friends. Welcome,
Yay!
John and Mandy. Together for another week.
Yep. How's everybody doing?
Good.
Doing okay.
Yay! What's the weather like?
Hot.
It is, yeah, hot and humid.
Oh,
Yep.
yeah, I'm not
Very
in
humid.
I'm not in humid weather, and guess what?
Oh,
Not only have I not had a lot of issues with my asthma here, I've been taking less pain medication
wow.
because
That's cool.
the humidity, rainy season, it causes my arthritis to act up so bad. It's so freaking painful, and it's dry here. It's so yeah.
Yeah,
It's been pretty cool.
Yeah, it's not dry here.
getting sinus headaches from storms. Minnesota, especially this year, has been amazing because we've had pretty crazy thunderstorms almost every day. Nora
Yeah.
was actually talking about it on one of her recent lives when she was here for the celebration of life. That was like one of like 5 or 6 storms we've had like that
Yeah.
in about a week and a half.
Wow.
I miss the desert. I went there a few years ago and it was amazing. I love the dry heat, but
How was the memorial thing?
I ended up not being able to go because of that storm. My
Oh.
head was killing me.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, I saw a little bit of it live on Natalie's page.
I think they honored, from what I saw, the little that they put out, I thought they honored Tony very well.
Yeah. That's from the stuff that I saw, it looked like it was a really fun celebration. I think Tony would have loved it.
Yeah, I liked the dance that Natalie's sister did.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was all beautiful.
Well, I wanted to say today I'm streaming on both channels to try and get people to subscribe to the lovely Mama.
Yes. Subscribe and hit the like button.
Yes.
Yes.
So if you type in Mama's Life, you should go straight to it. I don't know if we even need to put a link in because you're so famous.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, right. No, you might still have to put the @ sign, but you'll find me.
So yeah, to my audience, I think people know that I've been doing these podcasts with you for a few weeks now.
Yes.
And I have no idea how many we've done so far. Like I almost forgot to count them before we came live today.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but everyone also, let me say this before,
I think like 5.
Probably something like that.
Yeah.
But you all need to subscribe to Mandy's to MX Mandy McGee, and John doesn't have a channel. He should, but he doesn't.
I do. I have some magic trick stuff that I did it's mostly private that I would send out to people, but I have been meaning to actually start a YouTube channel.
Oh, you should.
John just likes to come onto other people's channels and offer opinions.
That's great.
I do have a lot of opinions. That is true.
Get it together, John, says Don.
Fine, Don. I will.
But this week,
why can't I see the comments?
You got to flip from private chat to comments on StreamYard.
Oh.
Sometimes it does the auto private chat as the default. I don't know why it does that.
I don't know. I can't see him.
It does that to me.
We need to get you a technician.
Well, when I get home and I'm on my computer, because there's certain things that it's very easy for me on my computer. It gets more complicated on my phone. And so when I'll be home soon and I will get it all figured out.
I know it will be all figured out. But so this week we wanted to talk about the Galvin family. Ooh. Fascinating family because out of 12 kids, it was 12, right? They had 12 kids.
10
Yep.
sons. Yeah,
6.
10 sons and 2 daughters.
Yeah,
That's so many
6
kids.
were of the sons were schizophrenic,
Yeah.
and I think only 2 of them are still alive right now.
Yeah, I believe
Yeah,
so.
it was Michael and no, Matthew.
Matthew and Donald, the oldest,
Yeah.
is still alive.
Yes.
But this family went through a lot because they were growing up in like the 50s, 60s. And back then, psychiatry still was a hot mess,
Yes.
a real hot mess. Lots of lobotomies, you know, stuff like that. And they thought that schizophrenia was caused by the mother for like underparenting or something like that. They had no idea where schizophrenia came from.
Yeah.
Still, we don't have a full grasp on it, but that's why I think this family is fascinating to researchers, because they've all given permission to use their DNA in research for schizophrenia.
Yeah. Yep. So, can I read the brief history
Yes.
real quick? And
Go ahead.
okay, so the Galvin family was an Irish Catholic family. Donald Sr. and his wife Mimi were married in 1944 during wartime, and he took off. Donald Sr. went into the Air Force. When he got out, he had what we now call PTSD. He was not, and of course, they began to have children, 10 sons and 2 daughters. And he was considered a hands off father. He did not call his kids by their name, but by their number in order of their birth. And between the 60s, the 1960s and 80s, actually, let me jump ahead. So their children were, in order, Donald Jr., James, John, Brian, Michael, Richard, Joseph, Mark, Matthew, Peter, Margaret, and Mary. And Mary ended up changing her name to Lindsay. And Donald Jr., this is going to be very brief, but Donald Jr., according to the medical records, is the first to be they thought he had schizophrenia, but the mother has said that it was geez, one of the other I think Joseph was showing signs at a very young age. But anyway, Donald went to Colorado State University. They lived in Colorado Springs. And Donald Sr. Started doing things like he jumped into a bonfire. He slowly and painfully strangled a cat. He severely beat his younger brothers, had his first psychotic break before his last sibling was born. Illness became worse, went back home from college to live with his family. At that time, he was separated from his wife. He did seek help at college, but they never diagnosed him. He then tried to murder his wife, got sent to the state mental hospital, and was then diagnosed with schizophrenia. Then James began hearing voices and attacking his wife. He suffered from paranoia. He had been SAing his sisters. He died in 2001 from a heart attack.
Also, I think it was some of the younger boys as well.
Okay. And then Brian killed his girlfriend Noni, then killed himself, and he was SA'd sisters before James did. So the sisters were all said to be already numb to the abuse. Then there's Peter, started wetting himself because he thought the devil was under the house. He was prescribed like 8 antipsychotic drugs. None of them worked. And then he got some shock treatments. Matthew severely beat beaten by brother Joseph, resulting in a need for brain surgery. Spent time in different facilities, ended up living independently, and for a time thought he was Paul McCartney of the Beatles. Joseph, the last to be diagnosed at age 25, had been essayed when he was young. And that's basically the very brief thing. And I also just looked up a couple things. What is schizophrenia? It's a disorder that affects a person's ability to think, feel, and behave clearly. Cause is not known, but combination of genetics, environment, and altered brain chemistry and structure may play a role. And the symptoms can be social isolation, disorganized behavior, delusion, aggression, confusion, hallucinations, paranoia, hearing voices, and that's just to name a few. And treatment is usually lifelong and is done with medication, psychotherapy, coordinated specialty care services.
Did you talk about what ages it comes about?
I did not. I didn't want to go into it that detail. I just wanted in the
Okay.
beginning just to
Well,
give a
yeah,
brief.
it's slightly important because you don't really know if you have it until the symptoms come on, and usually it's in your late teens, early 20s.
Okay. But the mother, I think it was, oh, maybe it was James, because the sister said the mother told her that James, yeah, because it was the second oldest, was exhibiting behavior when he was young.
Yeah.
And she couldn't put her finger on it.
Yeah, which is why, like, I feel like some of them might have, excuse me, some of them might also have other comorbidities along with their schizophrenia, which can happen. It's very rare that a child will exhibit symptoms of schizophrenia early. It can happen, but it's rarer. And I started watching the doc, and the documentary is called Six Schizophrenic Brothers on HBO Max. And I always research after I watch a documentary to try and see what the family or the people involved feel about it, because we all know that sometimes documentaries will edit things in a certain way that is not very nice or favorable, or they'll leave things out. So the sister who was on the doc did say that there were a few things that she was unhappy with. She thought that the doc was making them look like monsters, when in reality, some of the big incidents that happen didn't happen that often. Maybe a couple of times a year. Yeah, that's still, a lot to deal with. But it was usually only when they were going off their medication, if they've gone off their medication.
Right. And you got to remember it was during a time where people didn't talk about this stuff either. They kept it within a family, and they tried to deal with it themselves, because the last thing you want to do is admit to yourself there's something wrong with your kids, because then you start blaming yourself.
Yeah.
And not understanding.
And also, everything is always a woman's fault. If we know history, it's the fault of the woman. Yeah. And it's no different in this case. They thought the women were responsible for whatever happened to the child, mental health wise or whatever. But now we know a little bit better. We don't give lobotomies anymore. We only use electroshock therapy in most extreme cases. Yes. There's still, needing to be improvement, which, we can talk about. But when it comes also to the documentary, she said that, and I cannot pronounce this freaking word. Let me find it again. There's a specific type of schizophrenia, or a coexisting thing that happens. Now that I'm looking for the word, I can't find it. It was like agaphasia or something like that. Talk for a second. Let me find this, and then I'll come back to it.
Okay. Well, I think one of the reasons they blame the women back then is because women were usually stay-at-home women. So they were the ones that were raising the kids. So everything that went wrong was their fault.
Well, in the interview that I watched with the second oldest daughter, or I guess the oldest daughter.
Yeah, that's the
Mary.
sister that was in the documentary.
Yeah.
So
she
this
was
I'm
saying-
typing the word into the chat. Sorry, I don't mean to
Okay.
interrupt.
So what about her, John?
That was one of the reasons why the family was so hesitant to seek mental health stuff, was because she knew that with schizophrenia, the prevailing theory in mental health at the time was that it was always the mother's fault,
Mhm.
Yeah.
which didn't feel valid. So she
Right.
didn't have a real great stock of, or she didn't have a high opinion of mental health professionals because
Right.
it seemed like it was just kind of BS.
Yeah.
Okay, so can anybody pronounce that word that I just typed in the chat? It's like
Anosognosia.
yeah, we'll go with that. So what this means is it's a condition where you cannot at all recognize other health mental problems you have. Like, so most schizophrenics, once they're diagnosed, they know there's something is wrong. They're aware of their mental health issue, but there's a very small percentage of them who have this condition where you are fully detached. You really do not see that anything is wrong. You do not recognize that you have a problem. It's like there's a wall there.
Right.
And it from
And well, I was going to say, and the sister was upset that they didn't mention this because she talked about it at length, apparently, in the documentary, but they cut it all out.
Wow.
And I feel like that is important information. I don't know.
Yeah, I would agree.
Like, not
that
everybody
get
understands even what schizophrenia is, and you'll have like the media stigmatizing it by showing that it's like, you know, a violent person. They're either going to be violent towards you or violent towards themselves, when in most mental health conditions, that's not the case at all.
And that should be a lesson for anyone who ends up getting a book deal or a documentary deal or a movie deal. You have in writing that they need your approval to remove stuff. Seriously, because that's just wrong.
Yeah, that's just the way the documentaries have gone for so long, because you're still telling a story, you're still weaving a narrative.
Yeah.
So it's going to be edited to show whatever narrative they're trying to show. And so that's why the sister felt like, especially even with the music that they used, that it was like doom and gloom, like all the time. And while she said, yes, it was very difficult, her family was a very loving family still. Her parents tried the hardest they could. She felt like her mother was a superwoman, and she tried to protect the other kids that were not affected as much as possible. And so that's why some of the younger ones didn't even realize the full scope of what was ever happened until later in life.
Right. But one of the daughters, I mean, it was either Margaret or Mary / Lindsay, had blamed their mother.
I'm sure they did at some point. I think at like when you are healing from generational trauma or like family trauma, you go through lots of phases of like, I used to really blame my grandmother for a lot of things, and she did do a lot of damage. I also now in my later years have more of a grasp on what trauma does to somebody. And I recognize what her trauma did to her. And it has made us be able to talk about our traumas together in a way that we've never have before. And now I have a different perspective of my family than I did when I was growing up, and even coming out of the house and like getting a breather finally from everybody.
Yeah.
It takes a long time sometimes to go through everything and process everything, because maybe like at one point they blame their mother because she had 12 freaking children. That's a lot of children to keep track of.
Yes.
Man, it sure is.
And yeah, like I understand why now she can say that, you know, because you can both love your abuser or love, you know, someone that maybe didn't do exactly what you needed them to do,
Mhm.
and still like, you know, hold them accountable. Like I never feel like it's one or the other. It depends on the
Right.
situation. It's very situational.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It makes a lot of sense. I do remember that. I can't remember if it was I want to say it was maybe the mother, but it could have been the father, when all the boys started really getting into
Fighting. Yeah.
severe fighting. They bought them boxing gloves and let them go.
Yeah. And I feel like that's also what, mental illness aside or whatever was happening to them,
Mhm.
that is how families treated their sons.
Yeah.
Growing up. Like I would see my little cousins and I'm like, oh my God, they're gonna really hurt each other. And my aunt will just be like, they're just boys, that I can't control them.
That is true. That's
She
how I
would
was
just be
brought
like,
up.
take it outside.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. My mom would say that to even me and my older brother. Take it outside. Of course, my
But
brother didn't
also
hit
my
me, but
cousins weren't beating the
vouch for that.
shit out of each other. Like it seemed like they were really going at it in a way where I was like, maybe there should have been a little bit more control. Like don't
Yeah.
break people's noses, maybe. I
yeah.
don't know.
And honestly, I mean, I don't know a great deal about schizophrenia, but I did know, because I've lived next door to some in my years, and I have never known schizophrenics to be that aggressive, to be dangerously aggressive. And it seems like, well, two of them, you know, one tried to kill his wife, the other one killed his girlfriend. So I found that kind of interesting. And also,
Yeah.
I do know that even the worst bipolar actually has a couple of maybe more than a couple, just some similarities to schizophrenia.
Yes. I have bipolar, and now I would have to get recategorized because in the DSM-5 they changed it from 3 to like I think 6 different conditions, because there are milder forms that still impact somebody, but they weren't given like the full bipolar diagnosis, so they've changed that now. And I was actually just looking it up because I just recently got the DSM-5, and I'm trying to like catch up on some things that have changed. But yeah, there are like 6 different bipolar disorders now. And
Wow.
so I would probably have to go back in and get reevaluated to get like figure out which one of those I am.
Huh.
And to what you were saying before, Mama, I don't know how common it is for violence amongst people with schizophrenia, but it's definitely not something that's uncommon. I think it just depends on the situation and that, you know,
And the
what issues
type.
that person has. Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
there's a lot of different types of schizophrenia.
Yeah.
Because you'll have catatonic schizophrenics, you can have paranoid schizophrenics, delusional schizophrenics. Like they like differentiate like between a lot of different things, because
And does that have to do with where it's at? Like, isn't there a frontal lobal? Shoot, can't talk.
front lobe, front
Yeah,
lobe,
you know what I
frontal
mean.
lobe. Yes.
Yeah, that's a certain type.
I
Or
don't-
is every
Yeah, I'm
all
not
of
certain.
I'm not sure about like specifically about the brain and schizophrenia.
them? Huh. I don't know. I remember hearing something about a specific name, uh, frontal lobe schizophrenia,
Yeah, they have
something
different
like that.
ones because it depends, and it's this. When I was looking up the bipolar one, it has to do with the amount of like psychosis versus depression versus this versus that, like the length of your symptoms, when they show up, how they present. It's all very different depending on that. And I don't know exactly what in the brain controls what in that regard.
Okay.
You'd probably have to look that up on like a neuroscience blog or something.
Yeah. It gets pretty in depth.
It can get very
all.
yes, it can get very in depth. But from all of my training and also talking to other therapists and stuff, the best way to work with someone who is having a delusion or they're hearing something or whatever, you want to go with it. Never want to tell them it's all in your head. There's nothing there, because that can make what's happening worse, because then all of a sudden you don't believe them because what they're seeing is real to them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you just want to kind of go with it, and it helps calm them down.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with, like, I was actually talking to my therapist today about it, because I was like, it's kind of like how I talk to the preschoolers in a way.
Yeah.
Like when I'm playing pretend with them. Oh yeah, tell me more about that. Okay. Now what's the next step? Okay. Like you just want to go with it, ask them questions, like, you know, and like you want to be calm about it.
Yeah, certainly.
Well, and it's also the way that, you know, people who have different forms of dementia, when they're in a memory or misremembering stuff, like how people say that you should work with them instead of, you know, correcting them. Oh, this isn't the thing. Like just roll, you know, if it's not something that's harmful, just roll with it.
Role play with them. Yeah. When I was reading or I was watching a psychiatrist on YouTube talking about the Galvin family, she said the two hardest disorders to work with is schizophrenia and Alzheimer's / dementia, because of like the executive functioning and cognitive aspects are just like, they're all completely out of whack, more so than any other condition that exists.
Right. And when with somebody with Alzheimer's, their reality is also their reality too.
Mm-hmm.
And you never hear anybody trying to fight someone with Alzheimer's reality, right? So why would you do that with someone with schizophrenia?
I was kind of trying to train myself on that with dementia, because I don't know if my grandmother has dementia, but she's definitely not all there anymore. The way her memory is, the way she talks, and our relationship has always been like push pull, like very volatile. She triggers me really easily, and I had to learn how to just, like, if she does not remember it, just go with it anyway and just be like, okay, you're sure, maybe you're right. Okay, maybe I am misremembering wrong. Okay. Like and it's hard for me to do that, and I don't know if it's because of like also my autism. But like it's hard for me to not correct anybody, like, because it's just like a factual like weirdness that I have. Like my brain is like, no, facts. Yeah. And so we had a bit of a struggle for a while with her memory and stuff. But
well, I was when my dad was diagnosed with early onset dementia, the doctor said he's actually been early onset for almost 2 years.
Wow.
And he said, and I told him things that my dad was doing because they were out of the ordinary. And he told me that people with dementia, male or female, are the most cleverest people There are, because they know something's happening. They know, they say something or forget something, or they do something that is just weird. And like my dad would pick up my mom's oxygen tube because she was on oxygen, and he'd
Mhm.
stand there and he'd stare at it, and she's not getting any oxygen. She would tell me, I'm fine, don't worry about it, dad'll fix it. And he'll be standing there, and I'm freaking out, give my mom air, and but I mean, my mom was fine, but it's like they start to realize things aren't right, so they start making
Mhm.
excuses, and then they start out and out lying. Oh, well, I knew that, I was just seeing if you knew that, and just everything else.
Yeah, to
And
kind of like
it's,
save face because it's
yeah,
probably really humiliating.
well, yeah, something's wrong, but
Mhm.
and well, like in my dad's case, his two aunts both had straight on Alzheimer's. And he was always afraid of him getting that. And he knew that he was headed for that. And it scared him. So he didn't want anybody knowing. So yeah, it's pretty, but yeah.
Yeah, but the thing is, we know now that when it comes to this kind of these hardcore mental illnesses, people need support.
Yes.
Like I
Yep.
used to just tell like my dad, like even he would be too prideful, too humble. I'm like, just stop. Just please stop that. Like I need to know when something is actually wrong.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's like stubbornness, humility, like you don't want people to
Pride.
worry,
Yeah.
you know.
I think kind of all of that stuff, but I think a big part of it too, like I know for me, it would be terrifying for my sense of reality to not actually comport with reality. And it would be a very understandable thing to want to just try and pretend that that wasn't happening,
Yeah.
because that would be incredibly difficult to deal with. And so I
Yeah.
could absolutely see where somebody would just want to kind of ostrich method that as much as they could, because
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's a real harsh reality. Like if the things that you're experiencing aren't actually happening, but it seems completely real to you, what do you do with that? Like that's terrifying.
Exactly. Yeah.
And unfortunately, in this country, we've put a lot of them on the street, and then we jail them
Yes.
over and over again.
Yeah.
A lot of these people, especially from the 70s, when they just like emptied all of the insane asylums, and then you just had all these mentally ill people loose, homeless, maybe had families, but did the families find out? No.
Yeah.
Like I've heard so many stories of families finding out way later that their family member was released without them even knowing, and now they can't find them.
Yeah.
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 And having the stresses of not being able to have stable food or shelter, things like that, definitely gonna make those mental illnesses that people are having not be worse.
Oh
You know,
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure your schizophrenia is going to be super managed when you're trying to figure out like a place to sleep that isn't going to cause you to die of exposure.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and this family is very interesting because I don't think there's another case like this, like ever, maybe. I don't know. Not that I've like looked and I didn't see anything. I'm sure there's probably multiple siblings in a family that might have the same mental illness. Like me and my mom both have bipolar, but hers was presented way differently than mine did.
Yeah.
Um, but to have half of your gene pool right there, your 12 kids, and then 6 of them all have varying degrees of of schizophrenia,
Yeah.
and that also seem very like extremely delusional, like someone seeing something in a fire and then going to jump in it, like
Yeah.
that is an extreme reaction.
Yeah.
It's
I
more
think
than
Donald.
just trying to hide and say that, the CIA is coming in to get me. Like they
Yeah.
really seem to have some issues, and that's why I think it was there was probably more than just schizophrenia going on for some of them.
Yeah, and I would agree with you on that. And I think Donald Jr. was I think, the worst. But then it was it James who Brian killed his girlfriend Noni.
Yeah.
And so them two, Donald Jr. and Brian, are the only two that took it to the extreme of killing.
Was
Well,
it Donald?
almost,
Was it Donald that almost killed his wife?
he almost
The
killed his wife.
cyanide.
Yes.
Yeah.
The
Well,
cyanide.
yeah, and James almost did too. I mean, the only reason that it didn't progress to something more serious was because his wife took herself and their son and
Yep.
basically went into hiding for
Yeah.
like the better
Yep.
part of a decade.
Yep.
Yeah,
But,
I cannot imagine being those parents, that mother, like really, like I feel like some people probably failed them along the way. Doctors, she didn't want to lock up her kid, and I understand
No.
why.
No.
Because those places weren't very nice. But
No.
I sort of feel like when it comes to extremes, especially violence,
You got to do something.
yeah, at least for a while until they're like, better. Like I had a friend growing up that he was more violent towards himself than anything. But once he got medication and got a good therapist and he had a good family, his symptoms came on kind of early. And so they were able to catch everything before it like progressed to be way more serious. And now he's totally fine for the most part, always keeps up with his medication, and he has a family.
Nice.
So that's why I kind of hate like how society and the media has like stigmatized a lot of these types of mental illnesses. So
and
the perception is that there's more, like all of them are more than half or something are always going to be violent. And that is absolutely not true.
I know. Yeah. And, I will admit, years ago, it was the first time, no, actually the second time I had been around someone that I knew was schizophrenic, and they lived next to me. And the person across the hallway from him was also. So I had two people that had schizophrenia as my close neighbors. And they would be yelling at 1:00 in the morning, these crazy things. And I got scared. I'll admit, I got scared. And instead of researching, I remained scared until years later I learned more about it. But, a lot of people I think are in that mindset because they don't know. They don't research it. They don't take the time to really know. They just think this person's schizophrenia. Oh no, I got to stay away from them.
Better yet, try and talk to that person about like their own symptoms and their own disorder. Like, and I got very little treatment growing up. Nobody really knew how to deal with it. I didn't know what it really was. Nobody explained it to me. So I was more scared of my own self.
Yeah.
Because
it's got to be a scary place to be in, like John was saying earlier, not knowing.
And like, I've been in active healing for over a decade now, and I have a good support system, and I don't have to be on antipsychotics. They're actually way too powerful for me. And so I have not, and because I like have a good routine, I get enough sleep now. I'm not, I don't have chronic insomnia anymore because of the medication I'm on. I don't go into manic episodes as often, and I haven't been into psychosis in a long time.
That's good.
That's really good.
But it took me a long time to get there because, I had no early intervention, no intervention of any kind. And then when I did start to have intervention, I felt like a guinea pig on medications. And then in my early 20s, I didn't have insurance. So I was like, no medication for me, none at all.
Yeah.
And I did that until it was just too much of a problem for the people around me to also handle.
Yeah. I think of the movie Beautiful Mind.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I love that movie, and I love the documentary of the real people, the real person and his wife. Yeah.
G14 classified. When my bipolar was unchecked, I had no impulse control. Yep.
Wow.
My bank account was in the negative a lot.
Oh yeah, I've heard that's one of the things. Instead of maybe alcohol,
When you're in,
they turn to spending a lot of money,
or promiscuous, or just too much, just total impulse, like
excess.
Excess. I would be in the middle, get up in the middle of the night and be like, I have to go drive to the beach. It's like 2 hours away, but I have to drive right now.
Oh geez.
Like, I would drag people along with me, but this was when it was like very unchecked, and I had no idea when I was even in mania. I really could only recognize depression for some reason. I just could not recognize the mania.
Because the depression is more of a low-key change of your perception. Like, it's, thankfully I'm unipolar depression. Like, I don't have bipolar. But watching people that have mania, you know, like you're in it and you feel great and you want to do a ton of stuff. You're not really stopping to question that this is normal. And depression is just like a bunch of weight on you. And after a while, you're like, hey, I don't remember feeling this heavy to do everything all the time. Maybe I'm depressed right now.
What age did I get diagnosed? I was like 14, I think, 14 or 15.
Hi, Joel. Nice to see you.
Yeah, I was around 14 or 15, which is why I say that I would be interested in getting re-diagnosed to see where I fall on the new DSM-5 now that there's more research into bipolar and all that. With my mom, it was hard to manage her mania because she would get into drug-induced psychosis. When you do drugs on top of having
that's no bueno.
These types of hardcore mental illnesses, it can make everything way worse.
Yep.
Yeah. Like times where I would have to call the ambulance on her, she is not even seeing me. There's nothing there.
Wow.
It was scary.
I bet.
It can be scary, especially like when your own mother doesn't know how to manage her own life or self. So I can see why it can be so hard on a family that it can destroy a family. People will leave. But I mean, really the only solution to people getting better is to have support, whether it's, you know, if your family can't like manage it, there are professionals that can. And I hope that like in everybody's area, there's like a place that you can go to if you have like no insurance, if you have low income. I know it can be hard, and depending on the area you're in. I think I'm a little bit lucky because in Seattle, there's a lot of places that will serve low income people and do sliding scale stuff. I've heard that some people's areas don't have any of that.
I was looking real quick just before I came on, and I didn't find anything because I unfortunately didn't think about it soon enough. But I was looking to see if there was an 800 number for people to call, you know, regarding that. And, you know, maybe a national thing where people can guide them to whatever they need in their own hometown. Maybe we can find that and post it afterwards.
Yeah, the only number that I know off the top of my head is 988 for mental health crisis.
Oh, okay.
And you can text that or call it. And there's also, I think, 988.org. And you can just like go through that, and that can help you with resources on mental health crisis.
Good.
Not just for the person that's having the crisis, but for people like family members, friends that need help with their, loved one. So
Nice.
that's the only one that I know off the top of my head. I am not well versed in this. I've only taken a few psychology courses, like abnormal psychology, child development, all that, those kinds, and then trauma-informed care. So I know a lot more about trauma, the trauma end of stuff, than I do about a lot of mental health. Plus, I don't want to go around trying to diagnose people either. I kind of hate when people go around on the internet and just try and diagnose everybody.
Well, I'll try to see if I can find a number or something. If I find something, I'll post it on.
I wanted to bring this comment up. Someone said something about shoplifting. When I was in the throes of my mania, I shoplifted constantly.
Really?
Constantly. And it was like for no good reason. It wasn't anything that I wanted or needed. It was more of like I was impulsively trying to see how much I could get away with.
Oh, you know who else did that?
Huh.
And who was ended up being diagnosed with bipolar? Christy McNichol. She was a child star of was it Family Ties or one of those shows?
That name's familiar.
Yes, and she was caught shoplifting all the time before she was properly diagnosed. I think she works at Walmart now, or maybe retired by now, but yeah.
Yeah, no, it was definitely an impulsive thing. And I ended up going to jail for it, guys.
Is that what it is? The impulsivity of it? Not,
but you don't really. It's a weird feeling. It's like this nagging feeling of like, do it now. Like, and you don't know what you're doing. You just kind of throw yourself towards something.
Yeah.
Like being very spontaneous. Some people liked me because I was spontaneous, but I was also very impulsive and doing reckless things. See, the thing is, the things aren't always positive that you're being impulsive about. And that's the bad part of the disorder.
Yeah.
And sometimes you don't even know why you're doing something.
Yeah.
Like I had a group of friends that we were kind of all doing the same thing for fun. I don't know why the other people were doing it, but I knew like I was aware of why I was doing it, but I didn't know how to really stop it. If that makes sense. It was that kind of an impulse. It was like, I don't want to do this, but my brain is just like, I need to do this.
That's interesting.
But I went to jail, and that's the lesson, guys. I didn't shoplift after that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's good that you're like the impulses didn't make you continue to do it after you went to jail.
Yeah.
I do know some people that did things like that, went to jail, and it didn't, like the impulses didn't stop for them in that specific thing. Like they ended up going to jail multiple times.
Did they not get the help they needed?
No. A few of them tried to self-medicate with drugs and alcohol. Most of them weren't in a place economically where they could afford the treatment, and they didn't have access to healthcare. They were doing a lot of like hourly work when they could work that didn't offer insurance.
Wow.
Yeah, there's a lot that needs to be fixed in the mental health care area. Yes. Unfortunately. Hold on, I keep missing comments. Joel, I don't know about this one. I have known several people with bipolar. I've seen that they are mostly very high IQ. Anyone else see this? I don't think I have a high IQ. I don't know if that's a thing, but that's interesting.
There have been studies that have linked like depression. I haven't seen bipolar specifically, but like depression to people with higher IQs. But I don't think it's just because you're depressed or have bipolar that you have a high IQ. They just seem to find it more in people that are higher than average intelligence.
Yeah, maybe that's it because I know people that suffer from depression and they are not high IQ.
Mama throwing shade.
Aw.
Well, I mean, I'm just being honest. They're good
Uh,
people, but they just aren't, highly, highly intelligent.
yes, and thank you, Nico. She says that her family was not the norm. My mom was a child SA survivor, and that turned to drugs in adulthood and alcohol. My mom started in her teenage years, unfortunately.
Wow.
And sometimes when you get in with the wrong crowd, you just kind of go along with everything. I think that's how I was coasting, honestly. I just kind of coasted from one group to another, and they were all very destructive groups. So that's why I kind of like woke up in like my early 20s and was like, I need to get out of here.
Yeah.
This is not good. None of y'all people are good. You're all toxic. Not good for me.
Well, it's a good thing you did.
Yeah, I mean,
know?
I was telling someone earlier today that I saw a quote that I now can live by. It's not my quote, but like I used to hear that people would say that like I'm strong for enduring so much and still like staying alive, and like
Yeah.
thanks, but that's not the strength part. The strength part is healing.
Yes.
It takes a lot of courage to make that step into saying, okay, I really do need help.
And
a lot of
willpower.
people get shamed for asking for help.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it takes some willpower too, because too many
Yes.
people give up and just give up. And you didn't.
To truly heal, you have to enter into a place of vulnerability that is
Yes.
very scary.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And you have to stay in that until you become comfortable with the vulnerability, because that's really the secret to healing, is taking down a lot of that armor that you have with people so that you can have resiliency for, being vulnerable, and if somebody hurts you, being able to heal from it, as opposed to putting up a bunch of walls and acting in ways that, while your kind of reactive brain wants you to do it, is not actually going to be helpful in interpersonal relationships or just life in general.
Yeah.
I don't know what's happening in the comments. People are talking. I feel like they're not talking to us. I feel like they're just talking to each other.
Well, I
which is good. Which is good.
No, I disagree with that. All of you in the chat need to be focused on us, specifically me. Okay? I don't want any of this like cross chat with other people in chat.
Well, I see a button that says more, and it says 59.
I don't know.
I
I don't know what that
50
means.
Is there 59 comments?
Probably, yes.
Okay.
I mean, a lot of people have been participating. It's been really good.
Well, good. Unfortunately, sorry guys, I can't see it.
Kate Delight says they are cutting resources for adults to give too much for the teens, in my opinion. Well, here's the thing. We know that early intervention is the best way to help people. The earlier you can help somebody, the better it is. It's like catching cancer at the right time, like before a lot of damage occurs.
Yeah.
But I do agree that there's a lot more resources available for children than there are for adults. It's almost like you turn 18 and they're like, okay, good luck in life.
Yeah.
Bye. See you later.
There
Have fun
needs
storming
to
the
be-
Castle.
Exactly. There needs to be an equal.
You think it'll
amount.
work? It will take a miracle.
There needs to be an equal amount of support resources for both young and old.
Yeah. And here's the thing. So there are some adult resources, but you have to be sick enough, disabled enough.
Yeah.
Like to get them.
I found that out, and I think it's sad because the people that need it are going to may not be worse enough now, But in a year from now, because no one helped them at the time, they could be 10 times worse. I
Yep.
don't like that.
Well, and it gets
Yeah.
into the type of healthcare where, like the only time a person can get medical treatment is when they go to the emergency room, and it's way more expensive on the healthcare system
Yes.
than
Hi,
making it possible for folks
Hi,
to get
Dusty.
regular checkups and
Oh,
fix
and
stuff
Carrie
earlier.
Ann's here.
Oh,
Also,
hi,
hi, Dusty and
Carrie
Carrie Ann.
Love you.
All the best people are here today.
Awesome. I can't see you guys, so sorry.
Mama is what is the thing, how we say you don't have a green thumb if you don't know how to garden? What is it if you're like tech averse?
I have black thumbs. I don't know how to tech on my phone. I'm better at my computer.
Yeah, to be fair, when I try to do mine on the phone, I don't like StreamYard on the phone.
I know. It's like you on your phone, you can't find to do a certain thing.
Wait, someone's going to LA?
What?
Who's going to LA?
Our LA trip is public now. Dusty Soda?
Are you going to LA, guys? When is this happening?
They've already went.
Oh, you already went?
Read his comment.
It says, hello, guys.
Our trip is public now. Does that mean he's there right now, or they've already recorded it and it's...
I don't know. But Kate Delight says they also have a black thumb.
Welcome to the club, Katie D.
I had a black thumb until I got with my partner, and she's an amazing gardener. She's taught me some tricks, mostly just how to not actively kill stuff, but I'll take it. I will.
So to start to wrap it up, in the description of this video, I put a bunch of links to things. I put a link to the NPR article that interviewed the guy who wrote the book for them about the family. There's also the video to the most recent interview, the one that I shared with you guys, because that enlightened me more about like the documentary and how she felt about things too. And I was able to get a more clearer picture from just her talking.
Yeah.
And yeah, so there's a few articles that I linked for the Galvin family, if you guys are interested in seeing more of that. And the documentary is on HBO Max.
Yeah, I would definitely recommend it to folks because it was very interesting, especially the interview that is it Margaret? I think it was Margaret. Yeah. Did, where she talked a little bit more in depth in what it was like in their family, because she does a good job of I think painting a fair picture of what the experience was like, that it wasn't always terrifying, that there was some good stuff, but also there were a lot of terrifying moments, and just kind of going a little bit more in depth in how her parents were, like one of the things that like her dad was the sole income, so he was basically always gone working, and so it was the mom dealing with 12 kids, 6 of whom had schizophrenia.
Yeah, and I think Donald is in a home now.
Yeah,
right?
the two brothers that have schizophrenia are both that are still alive and have schizophrenia are both in homes.
Yeah, but the family still, like at least the main sister and some of the extended family members still help out.
Yeah, and isn't it oh, I forgot. Is it Peter? One of them, one of them that's in a home, he still keeps in constant contact with the family, sends them Christmas cards and stuff like that. I for some reason they made a point about that in the documentary I watched.
Also, the one thing I do have to say is that it must have been really hard to be a sibling, especially one of the younger siblings, and your age gap with the older ones is so great. It's almost like by that point you almost can't have a natural sibling relationship because the gap is so wide.
Well,
Yeah,
I have to say,
sorry, go ahead.
I would have had 12 children if I could have.
That's so many.
Honest
That's
to
so
God
many.
truth.
It's so many kids, though. I mean,
I love it.
Margaret was talking about because James or Jimmy, as she called him, he was the one who predominantly was abusing her, and like one of the reasons why it kept happening for her was because she would go over to their house because she loved Jimmy's wife, and
Yes.
their son Jimmy Jr. was like her exact same age.
Yes.
Because that age difference was so big. Like Jimmy was, I want to say, like 20 years older than her, which would make sense. I mean, if you're having a kid, like every couple of years, you're going to have like a 20-year difference between the oldest and the youngest.
Oh, wow. There's a 15-year difference between my eldest and youngest, and they get along. It's not that they can't get along. It's just like by that point, your age gap is really wide and you've already lived a lot. Like, I think Donald was in college when Margaret was really little.
Yes.
It's like you have almost nothing in common. You're not going to be having the same friends or anything like that. It's not like you can't, but I'm just saying typically it won't happen.
Right. I mean,
also,
it is a big one.
Dusty says, myself, Cheryl, and Sarasota Jerry next weekend.
Oh, great.
Oh, cool.
Nice.
Make sure everyone watches.
Yeah, I can't wait to see that. That'll be awesome. Let's tidy up some more things. If you have questions about narcissism and narcissistic tendencies, look up Dr. Ramani on YouTube. She's a real professional. Yes, I have seen her stuff. She works very closely with narcissism and trying to help people overcome their narcissism. That is one thing where one mental or personality disorder where they don't think they have anything wrong with them. It's very hard to get a narcissistic person to admit that something is wrong and to actually get help.
I feel very attacked right now. I am perfect.
Well, we already know that, John.
Don't feed into the narcissism. Don't do it.
Hold on. Mama, with a lot of children, don't you think that one-on-one parent-child connection suffers?
Yes, I do think that. And obviously I didn't have 12. I only had 2 because I couldn't physically have any more. But if I would have been in a good marriage and could have had kids, I might not have had 12, but I wanted a big family. When I was in high school, I didn't want any children. And in my 20s, that changed. I just wanted a big family.
I think, well, a lot of the older generations, that was the thing to do, especially if you had a lot of land, you had farm, whatever it was, you had a lot of children. Like both my grandparents, both my grandparents had 6 siblings.
Yeah.
But as like we modernized, the typical is like, I think the average is 3 children, 2 to 3 children.
3?
Yeah.
3.3 kids was the last I heard.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's kind of dark, but part of the reason why families had a lot of kids back then too was because
some would die.
Yeah, I was gonna say child morbidity was very high. Like if you had 6 kids, there was a good chance not all of them were making it to adulthood.
There was a lot that had up to 16 children.
Yeah. Hold on, I've got to find what is her name? Valentina Vesaveva. She had, I think, 69 children between 1725 and 1765.
How is that possible?
She had a lot of twins. She
would have had to.
Yeah, so this includes 16 pairs of twins, 7 sets of triplets, and 4 sets of quadruplets.
Okay.
With 67 of the children surviving infancy.
I would have stopped after the second set of twins.
But her husband, Fedor, he may have fathered up to 87 children.
Oh my goodness.
So that was not his only wife.
Oh.
But that is the person who had the most children.
Wow, that's crazy.
In all of history.
Yeah. Well, that's too much.
God.
Like
But
she
I
was
do-
literally pregnant like all the time.
For
that's
for like
crazy.
all of her childbearing years, she would have had
Yep.
to have been.
Yeah, I mean, look.
Whoa, your grandma
even
had
with my
15 kids?
Oh,
Nico?
good. Well, yeah, a lot of my ancestors did too. 15 was nothing back then. But I have to say, with just having two daughters, I ended up with a very big family. So,
Oh, another point. They were a Catholic family, and Catholics are against
they were
birth
Irish
control.
Catholic, totally against birth control, abortions.
So a lot
Yep.
of Catholic
Absolutely.
families had big families because of that
Yeah.
too.
Irish
Yes.
Catholic and Mormons are the two that if you ask somebody, if somebody sees someone who's got lots of kids, the first question they ask are you Catholic or you Mormon?
Yep.
Wait, Bob Marley had 27 kids? What?
That wouldn't surprise me.
See, I can see men having a high number because they can spread their seed everywhere, but like
Right.
you only have one womb. I can't
Exactly.
imagine that many kids coming out of there.
I
But
know.
yeah, I was gonna say in Valentina's case, her womb had like a revolving door.
I know. I can't.
I bet those kids just kind of fell out at that
I
point.
still, even with having twins, triplets, whatever,
Triplets, yeah.
that many kids had to have been. I mean, I don't know how she physically did it.
I know it's got to be super taxing. So,
Well, especially with
Dusty,
the risk
yes,
of pregnancy. Good Lord.
yes, lots of risk for that. So they're trying to do a meet and greet for Friday, August 2nd, and Saturday, August 3rd. So
well,
anybody's in LA.
Yep.
yes.
Bay Area, and you want to get down with some crims, hang out with Dusty, Cheryl, and Sarasota Jerry.
Yes, that'll
right.
be fun.
And you can follow me at Mix Mandy McGee, MX Mandy McGee, or Great Catsby _. And Mama is at Mama's Life.
Yes.
So
And
we're not gonna always do double streams, but I felt like I was probably gonna end up bringing my bipolar up in this. I knew that, so I kind of wanted to just like do it on my stream as well, get more people involved. This has been a great stream, you guys. Thank you
Yeah,
so
it's been
much.
fantastic. Thank you.
it has.
I love all the comments and the questions. It's amazing.
And again, sorry, I can't see them, but
soon, hopefully soon.
Yes, thank you guys again.
Keith, well, duh. Anybody who's in a polygamy cult had a lot of kids.
Yes. Oh yeah.
That is not. We can't. Like, I'm not lumping those ones in.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, especially Warren Jeffs.
Yes.
Talking about a lot of kids. On Netflix, there is a documentary. The guy who has like 1,000 kids because he's been donating his sperm illegally all over the place.
Was that the doctor that like helps people with in vitro?
No, that was a different one. This is just some dude who has a YouTube channel that gets in touch with people who want children. And he's been cut off from donating to one organization, but there's like problems with donating more than like having more than 5 kids with your sperm, because then you risk maybe them running into each other and having incestuous relationships.
Right.
So this guy and this guy has like spread his seed all across the globe, and all these families are trying to find each other to start a catalog of how many children have his DNA.
Wow.
And you can look his YouTube up. He's still on YouTube, still like making videos saying that everything that the documentary and all these people are saying is wrong.
Oh, man.
And that there's nothing wrong with him wanting to have this many kids, blah, blah, blah. It's such a wild ride.
Not if he's raising them, no.
Yeah, he's not raising them. I mean, he's just donating sperm to people.
Exactly. He should be cut off.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a weird, like, I feel like that guy probably narcissist.
Yes, Kate Delight, you're right. He's from Norway. Yeah.
But these families, like, why would you want to get a sperm donation from a person who he would be a person I would not want to hang out with at a party. Like he would be
Exactly.
exhausting.
I know. Like, and when you see this guy and the way he is and presents himself, I would be like, who are you? Why do I want your sperm? But the thing is, he is a very good looking guy and charismatic. And that's what kind of drew these families in, because they were like, oh yeah, I would love to have like your DNA in my child. This is amazing.
Yeah, I don't know. Sick.
So he was not only donating to like personally to people, he was misusing banks as well. So
Wow.
illegally he was spreading it around to different banks as well.
Yeah.
And that's how that many seeds have gone out.
He had, like,
Yes.
criminal charges.
Yes, Sophia, people are weird. I think so too, but here's the thing. It's not completely illegal. And some of the people who have in the past gone through like this kind of thing, not exact thing, but just having issues with getting donor sperm, they're trying to start regulations, like change the law so there's actually like good regulations and keeping track of all these children out in the world that have donor sperm.
Yeah, they should.
Yeah.
They don't really have a database to keep track of everybody.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right.
Anyway.
Let's
Oh, wait.
wrap it up.
Yes, the court could stop him. Hopefully it gets to that. We'll
Yeah.
see. But anyway,
Hopefully.
thank you all for being here.
Yes, thank
Thank
you,
you,
John
everybody.
and Mandy, again. And sorry I can't see everyone's comments, but thank you so much for being here and commenting. And always remember to be kind.
Oh,
Your
am I
turn.
going? Okay. Don't be a creeper. Also, just regulate the amount of sperm that you're giving to random families, because that's insane.
Yes. And stay safe and stay hydrated. I feel like you should just change yours every week. We'll stay the same and you just change yours every week.
I'm kind of feeling like that's what I'm going to do. Yeah.
Sounds good to me.
All right.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.